Hey everybody, Mrs. Bianchi. We're looking at question 10. There's a few approaches we can take with this, either proportional reasoning or write an equation. An animal rescue center has an adoption event. People adopt 84 animals at the event, which is 70% of the animals at the center. How many animals were at the center before the adoption? So let's kind of compare and contrast our two approaches here. So our two approaches are what we've been calling write an equation or proportional reasoning. So if we're going to use write an equation, let's try to dissect this a little bit more, read it another time. People adopt 84 animals at the end, which is 70% of the animals at the center. So 84, which is equals 70% of the animals. So let's use, how about N for animals? 70% of the animals. So that would imply we're multiplying, right? Now this is a percent, and remember percent means divide what's in front of the symbol by 100. If we divide this by 100, that's the same as moving the decimal over 1, 2 to the left. So if I clean this up a little bit, the equation is really 84 equals 7/10. You can put a 0 here if you want, but I like numbers that are shorter, times n. Now if we proceed with solving the equation, then the next step might be to go ahead and divide by the coefficient, which is 7/10. And then this would simplify. If we divide 7/10 by 7/10, we get 1. 1 times n is n. And then you would finish up by doing this calculation. Now let's say you're not a fan of decimals, you're afraid you're going to mess up somehow with the decimals, you don't have a calculator, you're not good at division. Let's look at proportional reasoning. Now in class we've talked a lot about using a double tape diagram to organize your thinking, and I still recommend that whenever you're having trouble realizing that proportions, we're talking about parts and wholes, and if you're not sure where to put the numbers, sometimes drawing out a tape diagram is helpful. But when we have 70%, let's write that as 70 over 100, because that's what percent means, right? Out of 100. Now we want to make sure we understand what the 70 represents, right, and what this number represents, because we have to decide, is this number part or whole? Let's read it again. An animal rescue center has an adoption event. People adopt 84 animals at the event, which is 70%. So that would imply that it's the part, the 84, and we're trying to find the whole. So they want to know how many animals were at the center before the adoption, in other words, all of the animals. Now, if you're using this proportional reasoning approach, then I think I would first start by dividing by 10. If I simplify this ratio by dividing by 10, that means I can get rid of this 0 and this 0. So if we clean this up a little bit, we're really talking about a 7-to-10 ratio. Now, just so that we don't have any confusion, I'm just going to erase the zeros just to keep it neat and tidy, because we just divided by 10, and we're looking at a 7-to-10 ratio. Now, is 7 compatible with 84? Does 7 times something equal 84? And the answer to that question is yes, it is compatible. So you can go ahead and multiply 7 by that factor, which if you didn't know what it was, it's 12. 7 times 12 equals 84. Go ahead and do this times 12 to get the same number, and you'll have the answer. Now, if you didn't have a calculator and you had to do this algorithm, let's go back to that approach. If we had to do 84 and divide it by 7/10 without a calculator, let's just remind folks how we would do that. This would be the dividend. This would be the divisor. The mistake that a lot of 6th graders make is they forget there's a decimal here, and you can't ignore that. We have to go over 1, and then we have to go over 1. So instead of the decimal going here, we would have to add a 0, because what did we do? We multiplied this by 10, and we multiplied this by 10. So now the decimal would go here. So it's kind of the same idea, right? Aren't we really finding out how many times 7 goes into 84? It's the same idea. Whether you do it this way or you do it this way, you should end up getting the same answer.